Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, let's make a classic Puerto Rican flan from start to finish. So before I actually start making my flan, the very first thing I like to do is to get the caramel out of the way because it is the part that takes the longest. I'm gonna start by adding 1 cup of white granulated white sugar, followed by a 1/4 cup of some water. And after I add my water, I'm just gonna mix it up a bit, let the sugar dissolve. A lot of people are very intimidated by making flan because of the caramel. Because to be honest, heating sugar can be very tricky. But this is a very foolproof method on making the caramel. So I'm just gonna mix it all up, and I have my pot set over medium heat. So if you have an electric stove, that's the number 5. I'm just gonna put the lid, and it's gonna cook for 30 minutes. Alright, so while I have my caramel going in my pot, I'm going to go ahead and make my flan mixture. Here I have 5 large eggs, and they are all at room temperature. I think it's very important for the eggs to be at room temperature because it helps them blend a lot better when you mix them. Alright, my next ingredient is going to be 1 can of sweetened condensed milk. Then 1 can of full fat evaporated milk. And then lastly, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Here I'm using imitation vanilla because, to be honest, vanilla is a little expensive right now, so just use what you have on hand, no shame. So after I added my vanilla, I immediately regretted putting all of these ingredients into this measuring cup because I realized that it's too small. So let me transfer everything into a bowl and then get to mixing. All right, that is much better. So now I can whisk up all of my ingredients without worrying about anything spilling over. And I'm just gonna whisk it for about 5 minutes. So as you can see, about 20 minutes or so have passed and my caramel is starting to develop. You can see the color has changed a bit. I'm going to put the cover back on and I'm going to let it cook for about 10 more minutes or so. So here 30 minutes have passed and my caramel is almost done. It looks perfect, does not smell bitter. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a rubber spatula and I'm going to try to scrape any stuck sugar granules on the side of my pot, and I'm going to bring them towards the middle so they can dissolve with the rest of the caramel. You want to make sure that you work quickly because if you take a little too long, your caramel will burn and your caramel sauce will be bitter. And nobody wants a really good flan with a bitter caramel. So after I ensured that any leftover sugar granules are nice and dissolved, I'm going to turn off the heat and I'm going to transfer it over to my mold. So now it's time to transfer my caramel into my mold. Here I have a 9-inch glass pie mold, but any mold will work fine. Even little mini ones will work good as well. And I'm going to work as safely and as quickly as possible because the caramel is very hot and it also hardens very quickly. So after I've transferred my caramel into my pan, I'm simply just going to move it around to try to get the caramel to coat my pan as evenly as possible. And then after I do this, I'm going to let my caramel sit out at room temperature for about 20 minutes so that it can fully harden, and I'm going to set my oven at 350 degrees. So now that my caramel is nice and hard, I'm gonna go ahead and add my flan mixture. Here I have a fine mesh strainer that I'm using to catch any possible egg pieces that did not mix well. Now it's time to bake my flan. First thing I did was I added a baking pan into my oven first, then I put the flan mold on top. I'm filling up my pan with about 1 inch of water to create a bain-marie. And what the bain-marie is going to do is going to create steam inside my oven to ensure even baking. So about an hour and 15 minutes have passed and my flan is perfectly cooked. As you can see, when I shake it, it's still a little jiggly in the middle, which means it's not overcooked. It is perfect. When I touch it, it's still firm, but a little soft. I'm just gonna let this sit out for about 20 minutes at room temperature. So after my flan has sat out at room temperature for about 20 minutes, I'm going to lightly cover it in foil and then I'm going to place it in my fridge for at least 6 hours to overnight. And that is all for today's video. Now it's time for the best part. It's to eat our flan. Here I have a nice hearty piece of flan and I'm going to scoop up and pour a nice generous drizzle of that delicious caramel sauce. My flan is nice and creamy, but yet a little firm, just how I like it. So if you enjoyed today's video, please don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already, because a new video will be out every week. Until next time.